So this isn't something that is like strictly relegated to the world of AI, because this is something that we've seen in app development for a while, and we'll talk about that pretty quick. But the place I was made aware of this was from this blog, which also has a YouTube channel called Pivot to AI. Very fun channel produced by David Gerard. Cool stuff. Definitely check it out. But this article, this blog post that David wrote is called Generative AI Runs on Gambling Addiction. Just one more prompt, bro. And it is very much an opinion piece, but he brings up a lot of good points and parallels. So I want to use it as like a jumping off point for discussion. So we'll start just by reading directly from David's article. It opens with, you'll have noticed how previously normal people start acting like addicts to their favorite generative AI and shout at you like you're trying to take their cocaine away. And he talks about a software developer trying out AI autocomplete for coding, initially being very impressed at how good the tools are for the first 80% of the code. And then that last 20% is the hard bit where you have to stare into space, think for a bit, work out structure, and understand your problem properly. And that very much, I've been dabbling with AI and code and playing around with it because vibe coding's taking off as a trend. I wanted to see how capable it was. And that is a pretty good summary. To get you 80% of the way there on a common design pattern, yeah, completely. It's really good. And then that last 20%, it will just mislead you and lead you down to spaghetti land, like right away. And he quotes this developer.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And especially because it also serves to alienate you from the understanding of what you're doing, too. Because as you just take wholesale more and more pieces of it, you lose track of exactly like what all your functions and helper functions are doing and stuff. Yeah. So what he quotes the software developer saying is, for a good 12 hours over the course of 1.5 days, I tried to prompt it such that it yields what we needed. Eventually, I noticed my prompts converge more and more to be almost the code I wanted. After still not getting a working result, I ended up implementing myself in about 30 minutes. And saying that that experience is shared among his peers. I will say that happened to me, too, when I've tried this. AI traps you into thinking I'm just one prompt away, whilst clearly it just does not know the answer. And I think the reality of where that comes from, particularly in coding, if we want to dip there for a second, is just context. It does not have the ability to really process all of the context on top of what you want it to do, on top of being across separate files. The integrations are pretty cool and very impressive. The autocomplete is super helpful, but it is really easy to get stuck. And at that last minute, rather than consciously recognizing I should pull away and do this myself, it is so easy to be like, well, let me just tweak that prompt, because it'd be so easy if it just spits it out. And you just want to pull that lever over and over again. He brings up a book that I'm pretty sure I've heard you reference, Perry, called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products.
I saw the Hooked model at the top of that article.
Yeah.
So that's Nir Eyal's work. He's fairly well known in the behavioral design space.
Do you want to speak to that Hook model that he has developed?
Yeah, so his model is a little bit different than some of the other behavior design work, like by BJ Fogg, in that he specifically talks about a reward and like an investment that's there, right? I'm trying to remember that model off the top of my head. But essentially, if we go to BJ Fogg's definition of behavior, every behavior happens only when three things come together in the right amount at the same time. Sufficient motivation to do the thing has to be easy enough to do, and you have to have some kind of prompt in order to do it. So not like an LLM prompt, but you have to have an internal desire or an external ask, like somebody handing you a glass of water, or maybe even seeing a billboard. So that would be like a cold prompt that you can then take advantage of whenever you see the exit for the McDonald's, right? So I'm hungry enough, it's off the beaten path, easy enough for me to get to, and I now know that it's there. When it comes to Nir Eyal's model, he has all of that baked in, but then is also getting to the more gambling addiction side of it. Not necessarily intentionally, but he's talking about how to make addictive apps like Flappy Bird and stuff like that.
Yeah, what keeps
you there? Which is this idea of a couple things. One of them is variable rewards. So you shouldn't get rewarded every time you pull the lever, other than knowing that something is happening. But if on the 14th time that you pull the lever, you get some kind of interesting, fun payout, then you know it's possible.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to keep you pulling.
It's the classic Skinner box where they put the mouse in the box and they have a button that could dispense food. If it dispensed food every time they pushed the button, the mouse would push the button when it was hungry, eat the food, and live the rest of its life. If it only dispensed food sometimes, the mouse would push the button over and over and over, not even eating the food, and just go crazy. That variable reward is that extra little key.
Yep. So he talks about that. There has to be the reward. And then he also talks about an investment, which is you're putting in work, you're telling people about it, you're making it social. So some of the liking and sharing comes into that as well.
Yeah. And that's exactly, you broke it down exactly in order as it's written in the article, off the top of your head. So kudos on that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's it. So like we use that to build apps that hook you in. And it's that variable reward is nefarious and sneaky. Mm-hmm. And what the blog post goes on to say is that with ChatGPT, Sam Altman hit upon a way to use the hook model with a text generator. The unreliability and hallucination themselves are the hook, the intermittent reward to keep the user running prompts, hoping they'll get a win this time. And it is that randomness, that stochastic behavior.
I don't think it was intentional with current LLMs. I think it's one of those things that just happened.
Emergent.
It's like an emergent way of these things functioning. And the statistical probability that they're trying to follow in order to come out with something that's both useful, but is also somewhat unique at the same time.
Right, because if it was predictable, it would be boring. And so they have to have
overly predictable.
Exactly. And so they have to have that randomness, which helps it feel alive. We've talked about that in this show before. So they kind of inadvertently have that hook in there, and it's a really good hook. And I'm sure you've noticed this with Suno too. Like when we were making sound bites and silly songs and things for this show, like it is very easy to be like, well, let me just roll the dice one more time. Maybe these next two songs will be the best. Maybe these next two.
Yeah.
And that is like directly a result of the variable reward that is built into the way that AI works. Like you said, as an emergent thing, but it is a very effective behavior control thing. And I'm sure that as these companies try and leverage more and more ways to get capital and users and stuff, leaning into that is not something they're going to be afraid to do.
Yeah, especially as compute gets cheaper too, right? Because right now hitting the generate button over and over and over is something that the model providers probably don't want you to do because it's costly for them.
Right.
But as compute cost drops, then hitting that may be something that they really want to lean into a little bit more. It's like
and with paid
users, a
users,
spectrum of responses. Yeah.
And with people who pay for it and like it is generating them income if they can get to that point.
I know that OpenAI's first release of 03, or maybe it was 01, but the $200 a month version of that, they said that they were still losing money on because of the inference costs. So they're going to have to hit that crossover point to where the models are much more efficient. And the fact that people are going to keep banging on that regenerate button is going to be something that happens because we know that the variety that's there is valuable. And somebody like me, I hit the generate button a few times as well, but it's not because I'm looking for perfect output. It's because I'm looking for chunks of good output that I can then string together to like edit together the best bits.
Right. And I feel the same most of the time. That is what I've been like aiming for when I do multiple generations of a thing. But I have also caught myself in that behavior loop on Suno being like, particularly if I was making something silly or funny, being like, well, what if maybe this next one will just have some little extra special sauce or something. I'll just roll it for the heck of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely do that.
And also, like, there's a part of me that wishes AI was wildly profitable because the fact that it is deeply unprofitable makes me more nervous about the ways they will attempt to extract profit from it.
That's a good point.
Because there's an irony to this, like how much money gets pumped into AI versus how much money it's making, which is not a lot because of how much it costs.
Can I throw in a curveball?
Please do.
Because I wanted to hit it on this episode, but there's no other place to put it. Unless we put it in a dumpster fire, but I've got enough stuff there. What if your AI startup was fake?
What if your AI startup
really
was
just have a room full of people, but your interface is saying, put in your prompt here. Inference is going to, it's going to run for half a day, and then it's going to come back to you with some code.
No. Did someone really do that? Oh, no way. Okay.
A founder in India.
No way. And in India, too, because the joke is because we've offshored so much like tech support stuff to India specifically, I've seen the joke that AI stands for actually Indians. Someone actually did that.
Someone actually did that, got $1 billion to $1.5 billion valuation on their company, and then when it was found out, it dropped back to zero.
Billion and oh my gosh. All right, bonus segment. Here we go, Perry. What? Do you have an article?
Let me go ahead and share. Yeah, I'll share the story real quick. So here you go. Fake AI startups. Founder charged for fraudulent AI app powered by human labor. So
wow,
this was the AI shopping app, Nate. There's another one that was, let me share over here. This is Builder AI. Wow. And they fooled investors and got caught. So this whole idea of AI washing things, which is taking even traditional machine learning or traditional decision tree architectures and saying that it's AI, that's been a big deal that people are wanting to crack down on. But now we have people that are essentially doing mechanical Turks, right? Which is getting a bunch of people that are in a room, kind of a black box environment, and they're simulating AI. But founders are going, I have an AI company, and then it's really just cheap labor.
It's just people being exploited for low labor costs.
It was, yeah. So the line in this, the AI that was actually just ... people. Builder AI's core product, Builder Studio, promised to let anyone build an app. No technical skills required. It marketed it itself as the future AI-generated software built from natural language prompts. No engineers needed.
Good Lord.
Reality, a glorified Wizard of Oz setup where behind the curtain sat a room full of underpaid Indian developers manually writing and debugging code that the AI was supposed to generate. And then here a commenter on that. Artificial intelligence, more like assisted Indians, joked one commenter.
Yep, there's that joke. Wow.
It was biological intelligence masquerading as machine intelligence wrapped in a slick UI and sold as automation. Vibe coding fantasy come to life until the fantasy broke.
Wow, that's wild. And so they made a bunch of money off of pretending to be an AI, like actually having... Wow.
Until they didn't, until it was found out, right? And then everything comes crashing down.
Well... gosh, now I'm wondering if, like, could you turn that into a viable business model if you pay enough people? Oh, wait, that's called hiring developers. We have a different segment. Oh, sorry.
I mean, it's just called outsourcing.
Yeah, it's called hiring someone
to do right now
to build your thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of actual AI systems, though, our next segment, we're going to be looking at some of the more cutting edge releases in video and audio generation. So stick around.
Absolutely.
Some cool stuff.